On the scientific side of the dialogue, one of the prominent recent thinkers is Fredrico Faggin, a physicist and inventor best known for leading the design of the first microprocessor, who in later years turned his attention to the hard problem of consciousness. Faggin brings a rigorously technical perspective to questions that fascinated Jung and von Franz. What is the relationship between mind and the physical world? Could consciousness yet be an intrinsic aspect of the fabric of reality? Faggin's answer, intriguingly, is yes. Together with physicist Giacomo d'Ariano, he has developed a theoretical framework sometimes called quantum information panpsychism, or QIP, QIP. In essence, Faggin proposes that consciousness is not an emergent byproduct of brain complexity, but a fundamental feature of reality. Specifically, that quantum information and quantum fields are themselves imbued with conscious experience and even a form of free will. In Faggin's theory, the physical body and brain are viewed as quantum classical machines, controlled or animated by a conscious quantum informational field. He suggests that what we call a particle or a quantum field might not be a mindless bit of matter at all, but rather something that feels or experiences intrinsically. This is a form of panpsychism, the idea that consciousness, or at least rudiment of experience, is present at all levels of reality, perhaps even in elementary particles. But Faggin grounds this idea in information theory and quantum mechanics. According to his model, and I would agree, consciousness is the fundamental ontological category, and it gives rise to information. That information, when structured quantum mechanically, gives rise to quantum physics, and from quantum physics emerges classical physics. In other words, Faggin inverts the usual scientific assumption. Instead of matter, brains, consciousness, he posits consciousness, quantum information, matter. This hierarchy implies that if we drill down far enough into the nature of matter, we eventually encounter something like mind, a unified field of experiential information. A key motivator for Faggin's approach is the privacy of subjective experience and the holistic, non-reducible nature of consciousness. Classical bits of information, the zeros and ones in a computer, for instance, have no intrinsic feeling. They're purely syntactic. But Faggin asks us to consider that perhaps at the quantum level, information is different. In a 2021 paper, he and d'Ariano argued that the kind of information involved in consciousness needs to be quantum, in part because of its intrinsic privacy. Only you experience your thoughts, and because of its ability to build up thoughts by entangling qualia states. And here qualia refers to the raw sensations of experience, the redness of red and the smell of a rose, things that you can experience on the inside, that you can take in. The idea is that your experience of, say, an apple is a combination of entanglement of visual qualia, taste qualia, texture qualia, etc., bound together in one unified perception. It's why I can say red is red, but your version of red might not be red. My background looks purple to me, but to you it might look pink. That's the perception. It's the same color of light, but how we intake it and what we experience is completely subjective to us. And even though you call my lights red and I call my lights red, maybe your red is my purple. We don't know, because your interpretation and your inside is different. Your qualia is different. That's what he means by the privacy of information. The holistic binding of experience has long puzzled neuroscientists. It's related to the binding problem in consciousness studies. Faggin suggests that quantum entanglement might naturally account for the binding. Entangled quantum states can tie together separate elements into one state without a classical mechanism, just as consciousness ties disparate sensations into one moment of awareness. So, for instance, when we think of what does a rose smell like, we can both envision holding the rose, smelling the rose, seeing the rose. Moreover, Faggin's theory entertains a provocative idea about free will. In quantum physics, when a measurement occurs, the outcome is usually said to be probabilistic. The quantum wave function collapses to one result or another by chance. But if consciousness underlies the quantum state, perhaps a particular outcome selected is not random at all, but chosen by the conscious aspect of the system. In his paper, Faggin describes the conscious internal state as ontic quantum state, a true, definitive state from which the outside appears random or epistemic to an observer. The unpredictable outcome of a quantum measurement in this view is interpreted as the free will of the system making a choice. In other words, when a quantum event has multiple possible outcomes, the conscious aspect of nature decides which outcome manifests, a radical but intriguing explanation that would tie the mystery of wave function collapse to the mystery of conscious decision. If correct, Faggin muses, this approach could solve mysteries around the interpretation of quantum mechanics, like why and how collapse happens at all, at the same time explaining consciousness. Faggin's quantum information panpsychism is still speculative, but importantly, it aims to be scientifically testable. He and Ariano discussed potential experiments, for instance, involving phenomena that would differ if consciousness had a direct quantum role. Perhaps subtle violations of statistical predictions or new correlations indicating free will inputs at the quantum level. The theory resonates with other modern ideas. Is it non-reductive? Consciousness reduced to classical brain activity, and holistic. The theory resonates with other modern ideas. It is non-reductive, so consciousness isn't reduced to classical brain activity, and holistic. It echoes the spirit of earlier proposals like physicist Sir Roger Penrose's view that consciousness might relate to quantum gravity, or philosopher David Chalmers' suggestion of an information-based panpsychism. What's striking is how some of Faggin's concepts align with Jungian ones, the idea of an underlying mental reality on holistic entangled states, and the concept that choice meaning is fundamental, compared to Jung's psychoid realm or the unus mundus, the archetypes that tie together the inner and outer events, and synchronicities, or the archetype of mind and underlying order. Let's explore some of these further. And first, let's look more directly at how symbolic archetypes in quantum theory might be seen as two languages for the same deeper patterns.